by welcoming me in and accepting me for who I am. This is one of those spaces where someone like me who's seeking that understanding can come, and where allyship from people is welcome, where I won't be cross-examined about who I am or how I know who I am, but I can just be. So thank you for welcoming me, and thank you for creating this space for others.
Thank you so much, Owen, for sharing with us. I'm a little teared up myself. But now I'm going to introduce someone who really needs no introduction. Bob DeFilippis is going to come up and share with us some of his memories about his transgender niece.
Excuse me. Good morning. Thank you, Owen. I want to give you the counterpoint now. I'm going to tell you all the things that are wrong with Owen and how 30 years ago I would have done that. I grew up in the Catholic Church and was indoctrinated into believing there was a certain way to be, period, the end. And there was no argument about that. It's no surprise that I went into corporate life and became an executive along the way, because it fit perfectly. Sometime around 1980, I was having a major physical breakdown, and a physician said to me, "You need to quit your job." And I said, "I have 4 kids about to go to college. What are you, crazy? Are you going to pay my bills? Quit my job?" He said, "It's killing you." It was a values collision I could not walk away from. I had to make the changes that were necessary. What I didn't know at the time were the kinds of pummeling I would get from life, from stepping out of that career where I was protected and told I was right all the time. And you might want to think about that with regard to what's going on in this country today. In an environment where it was autocratic and people told you how you should see things and how things really are, regardless of how you might think they are. And all of a sudden stepping out into life without that protection, without the power, the money, etc. And just to give you an idea physically, when I stepped out into the world, I was 6'3" and muscular and had a full head of hair. Look at me now. I didn't know this was preparing me for something, and it had a lot to do with my, at the time, nephew. His name is David, born to my sister, Connie. Connie died at 29 years old, his mother, of a cerebral hemorrhage, and she was pregnant at the time. We lost her and the baby that day. Chuck, her husband, took David and went to California and told us, "You'll never see David again." And we didn't for 25 years. We had no idea where he was. My dad went to his grave not knowing what happened to his grandson. My mother, the same. One crazy day, I was sitting at my computer and I got an email from David. I had no idea. He had been looking for us for years and years and years, didn't know where we were. He told me things like he even would check the list manifest on airplane crashes to see if one of his family had died in a crash. And within a week, me and my children jumped on an airplane and went to California, and we spent a wonderful 3 days with David. And as I saw David as a man, a grown man, I saw something that was very different from what I had expected. He looked exactly like my sister. Same facial features. Beautiful woman. He was beautiful too. He was married and he had 2 daughters of his own. He spoke with a very high-pitched voice. He seemed very feminine to me. It was probably 6 or 8 years later, we began to communicate about his, quote, psychological problems. He was seeing a counselor. He felt like he was being driven crazy by his work mates. David, by the way, was a combat veteran. He was in the Army. He had seen combat. He had seen people killed around him. He had ducked bullets and shot other people. What he'd then endured in going through the process of transition was probably worse than his combat experience. He was savaged. I went through the experience with him from 2,000 miles away. His wife left him, his children left him, everybody else left him. He did find a good woman. They eventually married. And last March, I realized that I needed to see Deanne. Changed his name to Deanne. And I needed to see her and spend time with her and hold her like a loving uncle. And I hadn't seen her in many, many years, and I hadn't seen him in even more years. As we talked, he said, "Uncle Bob, I told my mom when I was 3 or 4 years old that I thought I was a girl and I wanted to be a girl." And it struck me, Owen, when you said, sometimes that's true, sometimes that's not. He has PTSD now. He was fired after he was harassed. He filed a lawsuit, fortunately against the school district in California where he lived, and he won. He got a small settlement. And with that, I get my pronouns mixed up, so excuse me, please. She and her wife bought a small ranchette, a little 6-acre thing in the middle of the Lucerne Valley, which is basically desert. And I visited them in March to spend some time with them. It was a loving, wonderful, healing time. The problem was that I felt like she had been so damaged by the experience and by what had happened to her, not for her any other reason than she simply wanted to be who she was, that I left with a big lump in my throat. She and her wife have isolated themselves from this little ranchette. The Lucerne Valley, if you've never been there, there's just dirt roads. There's nothing there, literally. It's on the opposite side of the mountain from Pasadena. She won't leave the house without a weapon. Fortunately, she's quite competent with a weapon. She was a combat veteran. They have a few friends, people who they can trust, but most people they don't trust because of the harassment she and her wife have gone through in the process of being who they are. One of the big problems I have with the whole thing is my 4 children are still having a great deal of difficulty with it. They have done to her what I think Owen said is one of the most difficult things, which is not respond. And I've had conversations with them about it, and they're very uncomfortable. And it brings me to another point, and then I'm going to finish with this point. One of the things I said to Dee while she was in the transitional process was, "This is going to be difficult for me. I know you as a little boy. The day you were born, I was there. And I held you in my arms as a little boy, and I saw you growing up until 5 years old as a little boy, and it's been a difficult transition for me to accept that you are really, in fact, a woman. So please bear with me. I haven't had the counseling you've had in the process of getting to this point where you're brave enough to do the things you've done in order to make this transition and live your life as who you really are." The other thing I want to point out is that one of the things that helped me a great deal before I went to see her was a conversation over coffee I had with Christine. I asked her if she wouldn't mind spending some time with me and talk about it, and we did. We had a wonderful conversation, which prepared me a bit for meeting my niece finally as a niece instead of a nephew. Today, as I look back on the whole experience, it has been a growth experience for me. It's been painful. It's been difficult. I know she is who she needs to be and is, in fact, real. And all I can do from this distance is to wish her the best. And as I left coming home from California, I renewed my vow to be accepting and loving and caring about everybody, to support people in however I can, no matter who they are, how they are, what they are. Because I don't want to see that pain done to anybody. I don't want to see that damage done to anybody. So with that, I want to thank you for your kind indulgence.
Thank you so much, Bob. That was lovely. And now I think that also Christine needs no introduction. She's been doing double duty here for us, doing both music, and has kindly consented to share some of her own memories with us.
Well, I didn't know what I was going to say. When I was asked to speak, you know, because I don't like to advertise. I don't like coming out. I just want to have a normal life. And I remember one time before when I spoke and I was not going to speak. I was going to speak but not mention that I was transsexual. And then a friend of mine, Kate Bursell, she said, "Christine, you can't do that. You can't go up there and not mention who you are. You're going to deny all those people an opportunity to be educated and to gain some understanding." So here I'm going through the same thing again. I wasn't going to tell my story. Like it's a long story, and as every other story, it's horrendous. A lot of pain, a lot of sorrow, almost suicide. I was so lucky. When I was about 23, I almost ended my life because it had been a very lonely struggle up to the time I was about 35. I never spoke to one person about my trouble because I didn't understand what was going on with me. I was perverted. There was something wrong with me. I was evil. Maybe I deserved to die. But yet, I wasn't mean. I didn't hate. And I always wondered, you know, why would somebody feel the way I do? Why would they be so evil? Because that's what I had learned about being transsexual, about boys wanting to dress as girls. Some countries, they kill them. And in England, I would be sent to prison, so I had this extreme fear of being discovered. I'm just rambling here. I don't know what I'm going to say next. But when I first came here, let me just finish this suicide thing. So my father had bought me this 12-gauge shotgun, and at that time, I was about 23, and I was in so much pain. Things were so dark. You have no idea how dark things can become and how painful. And I just wanted to stop